Hari Om. Hari Om, everyone. Let's begin with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadguru Devaya Namaha. So, Namaste once again, a warm welcome to all the Satsangis again once more. We have been doing this Amritabindu Upanishad for last two sessions now. Today is the third session. We'll continue that. So, as we begin, let's quickly recap uh, what we had discussed so far in this. Amritabindu Upanishad talks about the main resource that we have, the human mind, and how to use it for sadhana. It analyzes the nature of working of the human mind and then goes deep into how to develop that mind for our spiritual sadhana. So according to the Upanishad, there are only two kinds of minds. One is the pure mind and the other is the impure mind. Mano hi dvividham proktam shuddham cha ashuddham evacha. Shuddham and ashuddham, dvividham proktam. Two types of mind. Shuddham, pure. Ashuddham, impure. That's interesting. And what is an impure mind? What is a pure mind is revealed in the second line of the very first shloka. Ashuddham kama sankalpam, shuddham kama varjitam. The mind filled with desires. Kama sankalpam is ashuddham, impure mind. And the mind free of desires, kama varjitam, is a pure mind. Now, with this fundamental definitions, there are various definitions of the types of mind or various categorizations of different types of mind given by other streams of work, especially psychology and the scientists, and even other streams of philosophies. But Amritabindu Upanishad is very clear in approaching the mind only as two different types. And we must remember all Upanishads, the goal of all Upanishads is self-realization. So from that aspect, mind is only of two types, pure mind and an impure mind. What is a pure mind? Mind that has thoughts of desire, kama sankalpam. That is the impure mind. And mind free from desires is kama varjita. Now, once we know that, we also, Upanishads is categorical and emphatic in saying that Because the mind is pure and impure, two types. Mind is like a double-edged sword. It can be a cause for bondage or a tool for liberation. Manaheva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoho bandhaya vishayasaktam muktair nirvishayam mama. A pure mind is a tool for liberation. An impure mind is a cause for sorrow, bondage. See, it's such a nice, neat, logical consequence and development that the Upanishad develops from here. And therefore, once we understand that the mind is both uh, a cause for bondage and a tool for liberation, what is the action of the seeker, therefore? The seeker, therefore, must strive to develop a mind free of desires in order to make it a worthy tool for liberation, a worthy instrument, a fit instrument for liberation. So there is a pure mind and there is an impure mind, two types. And the mind, therefore, can be either the cause for bondage or a tool for liberation. And what follows next is, if you are the seeker of this truth, if I am seeking truth, I must logically strive to develop a pure mind. That means I must strive to develop a mind free of desires. That is what the Amritabindu Upanishad is saying. And once the mind is free of desires, which means unattached to objects of desires, then the mind attains the supreme, is what the Upanishad says. So the root is very simple. All I have is this body mind, and I know that there is a pure and impure mind. And when I strive to develop a pure mind, the pure mind becomes a stepping stone for attaining the supreme. Um, so there is a very, very subtle point here, that the desireless mind itself is not the supreme. It becomes a stepping stone to supreme. Why? Because once the mind is pure, jnana must be established. The wisdom, the knowledge of who am I, the direct intuitive wisdom of my own true nature must flash, and that can flash only when the mind is pure. If the mind is oscillating, if the mind is noisy, there is no question of getting to inquire about who am I, because the noise will override the inquiry. And therefore, leave no stone unturned to make the mind pure and use it as a stepping stone for knowing my own true nature. Hmm? And how long, and the author of the Upanishad, the sage, says that you have to control the mind, because it's the impure mind has to be converted into a pure mind. That means a mind filled with desires must be the desires of the mind must be progressively reduced and ultimately completely nullified. That can be done by training the mind. And once the mind is trained, how long should we train the mind? The mind, we must work on the desires of the mind. We must work on training the mind to be free from desires, as long as the mind is completely free from desires. When the mind is merged, established in the heart. That means the mind is free from desires. Further training, further harnessing, further working on the mind is not necessary. So, how long should we practice training the mind, practice to get the mind to a state of desirelessness? As long as it takes for the mind to merge in the heart. Heart meaning the spiritual heart. That means for the mind to merge in its own source. Till such time, practice or sadhana must continue. Now, what is the methodology? What is the methodology employed? In order to know the methodology employed, the sage of the Upanishad says how to do it, what is meant to be used. Now, thought is the main uh, way in which the mind operates. Mind is nothing but thoughts, and a series, a stream of thoughts keep flowing in the mind throughout the waking state and also in the dream state. Only briefly in the deep sleep state, thoughts cease to be generated in the mind. We all know, psychologists say that the human mind generates nearly 20,000 to about 40,000 thoughts every day. So, in the waking state and in the dream state, thoughts keep continuously flowing. So, when the thoughts are flowing, what kind of thoughts how should I think is the next question. From what perspective? How should I think in order to make the mind move from impurity to purity? So there is a technique used. Na eva chintyam, na cha achintyam. Don't base the mind on thoughts of likes or dislikes. Chintyam is thoughts of likes. Achintyam, I don't want it. I don't want to think about it. Means it's a thought of dislike. That means don't engage the mind in thoughts of like or dislike. And then na chintyam, chintyam eva tat. Na chintyam, that means don't even blank the mind. Don't forcibly control the mind. Na chintyam. Chintyam eva tat, but engage in one thought. Eva tat, tat, tat thought, that thought. What is that? I am that, the Brahman thought, the supreme thought. So there are four kinds of thoughts that the Upanishads outline. First is the thought of like, second is the thought of dislike, third is an object thought, blanking, no thought state. Fourth is the subject thought about my own self as consciousness or Brahman. So of this, the Upanishad is saying, discard thinking about the first three type of thoughts of like, thoughts of dislike, and even forcibly suppressing the thought. That means into a state of silence. But because the nature of the mind is to think, allow it to think of the Supreme. Chintyam eva tat. Tat pada. Brahman thought. Tattvamasi. So think of that thought. Chintyam eva tat.
Brahman thought.
And silence. Suppressed thought. No thought. Vani was just asking, what are the four types of thought? I'll just repeat. Thoughts of like, thoughts of dislike, then suppressed thoughts. Not to think, I don't want to think, forcibly not to think about any thought. Suppressed thinking, suppressing the thinking itself, and thinking about Brahman. We must understand that the nature of the mind is to think and therefore give it one job, thought of Brahman. Allow it to think of the thought of Brahman. Okay. So once we engage in that, then how do I make the mind think of the thought of Brahman? Use the sound, is what the Upanishad says. What sounds shall we use? The Upanishad is very clear. Use the sound of pranava. Chant Om. Swarena sandhayet yogam. The sound Swarena sandhayet yogam. The very sound, use the very sound to unite, to make the mind meet its source. That means use the sound. You can't use any sound. That means you have to use a sound that is the universal sound. And since pranava, Om, is the origin, the very first sound of creation, use that very sound because that sound is the bridge between the form and the formless. It is the bridge between thinking and thoughtlessness, silence. It's the bridge between the mind and the self. Swarena sandhayet yogam aswaram bhavayet param. Once we chant, the sound takes us to a point, meeting point between sound and silence. Then what happens after the sound aswaram, the aswara or the silence of the omkar, bhavayet param. When the silence is established, bhavayet param, meditate on param, the supreme. Aswarena anubhavena. When I meditate on that which is beyond the sound, that means that which is supreme, bhava va abhava ishyate. That which is real and that which is unreal comes to be known. Otherwise, what happens? The mind mistakes the known to be unknown and the real to be unreal and the unreal to be real. Bhava va abhava. That means that which is real and that which is unreal, ishyate, comes to be known. So use the thought. Remember what we are talking about. The nature of the mind is to think. So don't think on limiting thoughts. Think on enhancing thoughts. What is an enhancing thought? Brahman thought. I am Brahman. Tat Chintyam. Then how to think of that thought? Use Omkar to move from this Jivatma to Paramatma, because sound of Omkar is the bridge between this body, mind, and the source of the mind. And what happens when we meditate ultimately on the silence that is which is beyond sound? One gets to clearly understand and see the difference between the real and the unreal. That is why in the beginning, the Upanishad says the silent mind is a stepping stone. It is not jnana. Then when the silent mind is meditated upon, then the difference between the real and the unreal must be established. That is realization. Only when one meditates upon the fourth syllable, matra, the silence of the Omkar, the, the difference between real and unreal is known. Use Omkar as a rowing, rowing going to row the boat, use Omkar as a sound to move from oscillations of the mind to silence. And then the boat floats, becomes still. That is the fourth syllable, silent syllable. At that time, one must inquire into the nature of the self and establish the difference between Nitya, Anitya, Atma, Anatma, that which is real and that which is unreal. Only the silent mind can decipher it. That which is temporary and that which is permanent. So use Om sound as an upasana, not as a mechanical chanting. Use Om to help the mind to move from sound to silence. In other words, from oscillations of the mind to a still mind. And then decipher the difference between the real and the unreal in that state. That is jnana. Therefore, in that state, one realizes Brahman. And how does one realize Brahman? Tat eva nishkalam Brahma. The characteristic of Brahman is given in the next 2 or 3 shlokas. Just to quickly run through, because we have discussed it, some characteristics of Brahman, nishkalam. That means that which is without parts, means that which is unbroken, whole. Nishkalam Brahma. Nirvikalpam Niranjanam. Nirvikalpa is without differences. Vikalpa is difference. Nirvikalpa is without differences. Niranjanam, blemishless, taintless. Tad Brahma aham iti jnatva Brahma sampadyate dhruvam. So you know Brahman is taintless, you know Brahman is blemishless, you know Brahman is free of any differences, you know Brahman is without parts. That means it's unbroken, unified whole. But that is Brahman. But the key is, what is the relationship between me as a seeker and Brahman? That is given in the second line of the shloka. Tat Brahma aham iti jnatva. Knowing that Brahman is I am that Brahman. Tad Brahman aham iti jnatva. I must clearly know that Brahman is not different from me. I am Brahman. When that is clearly understood, Brahma sampadyate dhruvam, that one attains that Brahman, the eternal. Knowing that Brahman is eternal is one aspect. But to clearly recognize that I am eternal, only then I am established in that eternity. Till then, I and Brahman are in duality. Brahman, I no doubt understand, is taintless, blemishless, without parts, unified whole. But what is the understanding of myself before the merger? I am limited. I am Vasu. I am powerless. I am broken up into full parts. I have the limitation. So here is the limited person, and there is the unlimited Brahman. No doubt, we must understand clearly, recognize clearly that Brahman is eternal, partless. But the second step must not be missed out. I must also clearly understand that I am not different from Brahman. Then Brahmapada is attained. That means I am established in that eternal Brahman. So that's very important. To know the eternal nature of Brahman, and to second part, to know my relationship with Brahman as I am nothing other than that Supreme Brahman. Both are necessary for realization. Hmm? So I think we covered till this part, that one attains Brahman, and then we will move on to the next few ideas, the truths that this Upanishad is about to say. So, having attained Brahman, having known clearly that I am Brahman, then what happens to all the sadhana? What happens to all the sadhana as a seeker? When I know that Brahman is whole, complete, and I clearly recognize I am not different from that Brahman, then the Upanishad says, na nirodho na cha uttirna baddho na cha sadhakaha. So, na nirodha, there is no dissolution, na cha utpattihi utpanna, there is no dissolution nor creation. In that state, when I am completely merged, established in Brahman, na baddha na cha sadhakaha. I am neither, there is no individual who is bound, nor a practitioner who seeks perfection, sadhaka, who seeks perfection. Na mumukshu na vai muktaha. There is no seeker, nor there is muktaha, a liberated one. Iti esha paramarthatha. Such is the state of divine truth. This is what the Upanishad is glorifying. In that supreme state, because there is no difference between I and Brahman, tat eva brahmahamiti jnanam. Once that jnana, that I am Brahman, is established, there is no difference, there is no seeker, there is nothing to be sought. There is no dissolution, nor there is creation. Then there is no seeker and there is no liberated one. There is no being who is bound, there is no being who is liberated. That is the state of the Supreme. What does Adi Shankara say in Nirvana Shatakam? Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham. Nacha shrotra jivhe, nacha grana netre, nacha vyoma bhumihi, na tejo na vayuhu. Chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. That means I am not any of these limitations associated with the body, mind, sense organs, or even the limited I. That is, I am Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am supreme bliss. I am supreme awareness. Sat. I am supreme existence. So there is nothing other than the self there. Now the question will then arise that experience is I am going through in this life as this person, but Brahman is the supreme state where there is no other. So in many cases, what does Drisya Viveka say? Supreme state is that which neither rises nor falls. Na udeti na astameti yesha. Na vruddhim yati na kshayam. Na udeti, supreme consciousness does not rise na astameti, does not set. And then na vriddhim yati na kshayam, it doesn't expand vriddhim, nor does it wean out. Na yati na kshayam. Swayam vibhatyat tanyani. Swayam vibhati. It is self-luminant and anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina. When it is self-luminescent, it shines every object without any external source, because its own source shines every object, every other object. So that means consciousness is self-contained, self-perfect in itself. When such is the case, then the question arises, how did that one self become this jiva or many jivas? How did the one turn into many? Eka eva atma mantavyaha. So the self must be known as one alone. When we experience variety, we must not get lost in the variety. As a seeker of the truth, I must clearly understand that in all the variety, self must be understood as one alone. Eka eva atma mantavyaha. Know clearly mantavyaha eka eva atma. Though there are many people, many objects, eka eva atma. Atma is one. Consciousness is one. Existence is one. Jagrat Swapna Sushuptishu, in all the three states, waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. Sthanatraya Vyata Titasya. For that being who has stepped beyond the three states, which means the Turiya, the fourth state, Punarjanma na vidyate. So here is a clue that the Upanishad is giving. All of us go through these varying experiences every day because we pass through the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state, alternately in a cyclic manner. But in all the three states, as a seeker of truth, one must understand, when one has trained the mind sufficiently well, that the self, the consciousness, is one in all the three states. How is it one? In the waking state, when the eyes or the sense organs are active, all the sense organs are active, then uh, who is the one that recognizes the objects? I say I, the waking state person, the consciousness. Then in the dream state, who recognizes a dream? It is still I. And in the deep sleep, who says, I slept very well, I was very peaceful? It is still I. The experience in the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state are different from each other. But the one who recognizes all the three different types of experiences is only one. That is I. And therefore, the I is common in all the three states. So know that I as awareness is one, and my nature is one in all the three states. Now, when I know I am the same, single unified I in all the three states, then I must also establish that I must also understand that I as awareness or I as consciousness is present in other beings also. Hmm? So the Upanishad is saying, Eka eva hi bhutatma, bhute bhute vyavasthitaha. Eka eva hi bhutatma. One self alone, which is the reflected self, bhutatma, in the self, reflected in the body, bhute bhute vyavasthitaha, is present in every living being, is present in every being. That means uh, the self in me is not different from the self in you. It is the same self that is present in you, me, him, her, it, that, this. Eka eva hi bhutatma, the reflected self, the one that is within the body, is bhute bhute vyavastitaha, is present in every being. Ekadha bahuda cha eva drishyate jalachandravat. How did that one appear as many? Drishyate jalachandravat. Like the one moon reflecting in many waters as many reflections, oneself starts reflecting as Vasu, Vani, Krishnamurti, every other person, Indra, and every other being. So we must not confuse the multiple reflections in multiple pots of water as multiple selves. It is one self appearing as many in just like multiple reflections. Hmm? So there are three different models that are put forth in Advaita Vedanta on how one appears as many, how one appears as many. One is the reflection theory, Pratibimba Vada. That means uh, one sun, one moon reflects in many pots of water as many reflections. So that is the reflection theory. Then Abhasavada, limitation theory. What is the limitation theory? There is one infinite space, but the instruments of recognizing that infinite space is finite. That means my sense organs and my buddhi are finite. I can see the whole world only as much as I can see through a small window. That is the limitation theory. The example given is now, if I'm able to look at the vast sky through a square window, then the sky appears square. If I look at the vast sky through a circular window, the sky appears circular. If I look at the sky through a very small opening, the sky appears very small, just as the size of the opening. If I look at the sky through a French door or a French window, the entire wall opened up through a glass, then I can see the sky as a very huge sky. Has the sky changed? No. What has changed? The viewing window has changed. Similarly, this apparatus, the sense organ mind complex, is limited. Now, it is constrained. Now, I can only see reality as much as the capacity of this apparatus. As my mind expands, I can see more and more of the reality. Nothing has happened to the sky. The extent to which I can see the sky or the scenery outside my house depends on how small or big my window is. Similarly, how expanded or contracted my mind is, that much reality I can see. This is the limitation theory. Limitation is in the instrument, not in the reality, not in Brahman. Limitation is in this personality, not in the reality. That is the limitation theory. Then Avachedavada, the false reflection theory. So the false reflection theory says that though the sun reflects, though the face, when I stand in front of the mirror, then I can see my reflection in the mirror. But my face, reflected face in the mirror is not me because I am standing in front of the mirror. So that's a false reflection theory. So all these three major models are put forth to, to help the seeker understand how one has become many. That means one reality is seen differently by different beings based on the sensitivity of the apparatus that they hold, sensitivity of their organs of perception and organs of cognition that one holds. Therefore, there will be multiple views of one reality. Similarly, there is multiple appearances of one reality. And appearance is as much as what the eyes can see. Brahman is one, but appears as many based on the eyes that see. So one has become many because of the limitation of the instruments. One has become many because of the reflecting factor of reflection of one reality into multiple reflections. So when that becomes uh, when when one is involved with these perceptions and cognition itself in the drishya aspect, in that which is seen, not in the seer, then world we seem to be lost in the world of delusion, maya. Shabda maya vrito naiva tamasayati pushkare, says the Upanishad. Wheeled by the names and forms or the description of the words, one does not know the self. He's caught in the drishya or the appearance. Then once the ignorance is destroyed, the unity of the self, one seer is established, and one sees the self alone, is what the Upanishad is saying. Which means when in variety there is attraction, don't get lost by the attractions of the variety. Nisargadatta Maharaj, I'm reminded of his statement. He says, all attractions are distractions. Very nice statement. He says that any attraction, that means any attention to where is the attraction? In form, shape, size, color, texture, and experience. Where is it? In the name and form. So variety is in the name and form, attraction. And name and form is continuously varying. It is never the same, isn't it? It keeps on varying. So if we pay attention to the name and form, then we lose sight of Brahman that is behind the name and form. What does this Dritishya Viveka say? And the 20th shloka says, Every object has 5 attributes. Asti, bhati, priyam, rupam, namam cha, ityamsha panchakam. There are 5 attributes. Asti, bhati, priyam. Existence, consciousness, and infinity or wholeness, priyam, ananda. Nama, rupam, name and form. These are 5 attributes. Adyatrayam brahma rupam jagadrupam tatodvayam. The first 3 belong to Brahman, the nature of Brahman. Adyatrayam, the first 3. Existence, consciousness, and infinity or Ananda belong to Brahman. Adyatrayam Brahmarupam. It is the nature of Brahman. Jagadrupam Tatodvayam. The last 2, which is the name and form, belong to Jagat, the world. What is the nature of Jagat? What is the definition of Jagat? Jayate gacchate iti Jagat. That which comes and goes is Jagat. That means name and form comes and goes. That means name and form continuously is changing. When it changes, mind gets attracted and to the change. It recognizes the change. Remember, mind can recognize the change much, much more easily than steadiness. Therefore, when the mind pays attention to name and form, attraction, it becomes a distraction to asti bhati priyam, which means it gets distracted from the self. Therefore, don't get caught in Shabda Maya Vrito. Don't get caught in the description of reality. You see the real, and on top of that, you see the name and form, and on top of that, you add masala describing the name and form in words. And that is a story. The story is even more away from reality. First of all, sense perception and mind cognition cannot recognize the reality fully. That itself is limited. Over and above that, the mind plays one more trick, adding description to what is seen, heard, touched. So that is called Shabda Maya, and that Avruto, it covers the reality. And when, because of ignorance, tamasa, ignorance, then bhinne tamasi, when ignorance is broken, when ignorance is destroyed, what happens? Ekatveva meka evanupashyati. Ekatva, oneness, anupashyati is seen. From variety, from differences, oneness is recognized. When ignorance is destroyed. Bhinna tamasi. Tamas is ignorance, darkness. Bhinna, destruction. Upon destruction of ignorance, that means upon shifting the attention from name and form to the seer of the name and form, ignorance is destroyed. So when ignorance is destroyed, what happens? With the same variety of experience, the same variety of name and form, the seer enables the seer to see oneness behind it. Enables to see asti bhati priyam, which is constant in every object, in every being of existence, that is seen. So that is a wonderful way of using the mind. That is the wonderful way of training the mind from impure mind to pure mind. From recognizing variety to recognizing oneness. Drishya is the same. Drishya means the objectified world. That is still the same, but the attention has shifted from drishya to drik, from seen to the seer, from object to the subject. That is why the amatra in Om chanting is so important. We definitely pay attention to the sound, but finally you pay attention to the silent syllable after the Om merges into silence. And there you pay attention to the nature of the self for establishing the mind in its own source. Recall the earlier shloka, practice must be done till the mind is established in the heart. That means till the mind reaches its own source and gets established there. In the beginning, mind will go to the source, touch it, and come back. As we practice more and more, it'll go touch the source, stay there for a while, and come back. Finally, a stage is reached when the mind is completely established in the source, and functionally, when needed, it'll come out to the world to function. What is happening in the normal course of living? Mind is always focused outside. In meditation, in sadhana, it is turned inward, touching. The stable point of operation, position of operation of the mind is the world view in the beginning stages of sadhana. When for a realized being, the home for the mind is the heart. From the heart, mind emerges out for functional reasons. For a jnani, it may be teaching, service, loka kalyana, anything. The work is done and it goes back and settles in the heart. For an ignorant person or for a seeker of truth, still not yet realized, the home for the mind is the world. Now and then in meditation, it goes to the heart, experiences bliss and peace, and comes back and settles in the world again. So the mind goes from heart to mind in both the cases. The mind goes from heart to the world in both the cases. But in the case of Jnani, the home for the mind is the heart. In the case of a seeker, sadhaka, and Ajnani, the home for the mind is the world. That's the major difference that one must find. And therefore, once the truth is established, once ekatvam is established, supreme one is established, you recognize oneness from variety, even in the variety, then the role of even the Shabda is over. When somebody points out to the moon, points the finger at the moon, see, there is the moon. And when I see the moon, where the finger is pointing at, then the role of the finger pointing the moon is over. That means I no longer need to depend on the finger pointing at the moon. Initial support is required. Therefore, we should not get caught. It's just like another example given is when I take a vehicle to go from one place to another and reach the destination, I must get down from the vehicle. Now, doesn't mean discarding the vehicle. It means that I am not attached to the vehicle. I don't get attached so that I don't move on to the other next event or next experience. So when we say the role of the teaching or the scriptures is over, it doesn't mean I throw the scriptures. It just means that it has done its job. Respectfully, I place it. I actually I'm more faithful to the scriptures when it says Tattvamasi, when it says you recognize I am Brahman, I am not different from Brahman. The mind actually recognizes the Brahman with full respect and faith to the scriptures. That is the trust, complete 100% trust. Many times the interpretation is saying you discard the scriptures. Discarding the scriptures is not that. Discarding the scriptures actually means I move, I actually see darshana of what the scripture is pointing at. It is pointing at Brahman, and I see Brahman with the aid of scriptures, and I respectfully bow down to the scriptures because it has pointed it out to me. So when the mind is fully established in the heart, the jnani doesn't throw the body and mind away. He uses the body and mind, but knowing fully well that the self is supreme. Now, how does this happen? Another example given is there are many colors of cows: black, brown, red, black, brown, white, many different shades of colors of the skin of the cow. But the color of the milk is always white. So the Upanishad very nicely puts it, Gavam Aneka Varnanam. While the cows are of different colors, Kshirasya Api Eka Varnata. The color of the milk is one. That means all cows give only white milk. Kshiravat Pashyate Jnanam. When we see the whiteness in the milk, that is Jnana. Linkina tu Gavam Yatha. And many branched scriptures are the cows. All cows are scriptures, many branch scriptures. It's a simile. That means all the scriptures are pointing to one Brahman, one reality. So nothing is superior to the other, nothing is inferior to the other. Just like the variety of cows give white milk. Now, when I see Brahman, when I see the Brahman that all scriptures point out to, it is Jnana. And this, the cows must be viewed as many scriptures. When I see a flower in the tree or a plant, I must recognize that the multiple flowers grown by the plant has one root. Plant root system is one, but the root is embedded below the earth, not seen, but it should come as a recognition. A rose plant may give 2, 3, 4, 5 different flowers, but its root is one. So all the variety gets into one. Another simple example, in the olden days, we used to have receipts used to be given using carbon paper. So if you see a carbon receipt, you must know that the original is present. We might not see the original. In today's context, photocopying is a better example. If you see a photocopy, I must understand clearly it is based on the original. Without the original, photocopy cannot be present. I might not be directly able to see the original. The photocopy is this body mind complex. Original is Satchit Ananda that is present. Because of Satchit Ananda, because of Brahman, this body has appeared. So we cannot directly see the original through this body-mind complex simply because finite cannot recognize or see infinite. The sense organs and the mind are finite. Infinity, by definition, cannot be recognized or cannot be evaluated, cannot be measured by a finite instrument. The only way is through understanding. And finally, it is the direct intuitive experience, aparoksha anubhuti, when the mind is completely merged in the heart and aham brahmasmi thought is clearly established. Therefore, um, let us not discard variety. Variety in names and forms. In life, we go through a variety of experiences, some happy, some not so happy, some pleasing, some unpleasant experiences. Same case with relationships, and same case with forms, pleasing forms, not so pleasing forms, etc. Some beautiful, some ugly. But the recognition that behind every variety is ekatvam, is the jnana, that all cows give only one milk, one type of milk, which is white. The milk from all cows are only white in color, in spite of their skin being different colors, is jnana. That recognition must come. Hmm? So, with that, let us pray and focus our sadhana on trying to recognize oneness in all variety. Ekatvam in Bahudha. We cannot run away from variety. We cannot run away from the experience of the world. But every experience must point out, must reflect the self rather than the enjoyment of the sense pleasures that the objects of the experiences provide. There is no harm in enjoying the experience, but even in that enjoyment, we must recognize that that very experience, whether it's pleasant experience or unpleasant experience, whether it's joy or sorrow experience, it is pointing to the drik, me, the seer, the self, consciousness. That must be borne in mind. Now, this is the principle. We will stop here briefly. And in order to recognize this wonderful principle, let's do one simple practice. Let's close our eyes. And let us relax our body. Can we recognize the sensations in the body? Different sensations in different parts of the body. The one who recognizes that is I, Atma, Eka Eva Atma. Eka Eva Hi Bhutatma. can recognize the breathing, inhalation and exhalation. Just recognize how the breathing is going, whether it's smooth or obstructed, does not matter. But the one who recognizes that is I, the same I that has recognized the sensations in the body. Let's now shift to the mind. Thoughts are going and coming. There is silence and there are thoughts. The one who recognizes thoughts and silence both is the same one who recognized the sensations in the body and the flow of breath. Eka eva hi bhutatma. That self in me is one. This body-mind appears in space, appears in universal consciousness, espouses body-mind, appears in the same universal consciousness space, Chidakasha, Chittakasha. My children appear in the same universal consciousness, friends, relatives, colleagues, neighbors, every object and every being appear in the same universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness reflects in every being differently to give rise to different experiences within them. Bhute bhute vyavasthita. That same consciousness is present in every being. Eka eva hi bhutatma. Self in me is one. That same one, bhute bhute vyavasthita, is present in every being. Proof: everyone has their own experience of the same reality. So pay attention to the reality, not the differences. Pay attention to the original, not the photocopy. See the photocopy, recognize the original. Experience the experience, recognize Brahman in every experience. Gently, let us open our eyes. I thank each and every one of you for your lovely presence and patient listening. I offer this understanding and the session, the manana, to my beloved Sadguru. Om Sadguru Charanar Pranamastu.